So I thought I'd go over each of the cognitive functions, information metabolisms for Myers-Briggs and Socionics, respectively, and try to explain each of them very quickly if I can, so just you have a general idea of which one each does. So first we'll start with extroverted sensing. Extroverted sensing is mostly about taking some sort of physical action with the outside world or something involving the external influence of your senses. So in this case, this can often be used or functioning for dominant or secondary functions for certain personality types as taking some sort of engagement with the world or taking an action or building something. So you can have car mechanics, artists, actors, singers in a way. These people are taking some sort of action with the world. It also involves ideas of image, engaging with people, and physical exertion like running and the like. A weak extroverted sensing often takes the form of just not taking action, so to speak, in the case of being lazy. The next function would be introverted sensing. Now, introverted sensing is mostly about your internal senses within the body, so it deals with matters of your physical health, eating, food, your state of well-being, so relaxing, and it also deals with your internal process of dealing with your sensory inputs taking in. So dealing with facts, accounting. So accountants often could be found with this dominant function. And other ingredients I would say is probably just some form of um, internal processing of what physically is occurring at the moment for you. And a weak introvert sensing often takes the form of being stressed, so not relaxing and often missing important details. The next function I would describe is extroverted intuition. Now, since we're into the intuition one, this tends to be more unique, and it often involves the form of imagination or fantasy or world building, creation, innovation, invention. It tends to be about possibilities and creating something new out of almost very little. So in this case, we can find a lot of fantasy authors or people of scientists, inventors, who come up with brave new ideas for the world by taking what exists and coming up with something new. So oftentimes it tends to be something very creative and imaginative out there. So a weak extroverted intuition would then be someone who is unimaginative or someone who tends to not have any sense, who tends to be boring in a way or doesn't have anything. It tends to be lack of originality. So overall, extrovert intuition tends to be about originality and novelty. Now, the next function would be introverted intuition, and this tends to be about discovery. So while the extroverted form tends to be about invention, the introverted form tends to be discovering what's out there or knowing what's out there. So it tends to look at the ideas of a concept and look at it at a very abstract mentality. So it takes existing phenomenons or laws and it tends to categorize them in an abstract manner. It also tends to be involved with having a big picture of things, connecting the dots, recognizing patterns, and also having a strong sense of instinct for what exists out there. It also deals with the ideas of forecasting in the future, so it tends to be about planning in the long term somewhat. A weak introverted intuition then therefore tends to be about anxiety, so worrying about the future, not knowing what to do, and being precautious for how things will turn out. So the next function I would examine is extroverted feeling. So this tends to be about the external emotions that exist out there. By external emotions, this could be either whatever you're feeling: happy, sad, indifferent, humble, trustworthy, whatever emotions you might feel, angry, mad. This tends to be the recognition of these emotions, and so it looks at this in this way. So people with dysfunction are also tend to be they tend to be very laughing, they tend to be happy oriented, very smiley oriented, because they have a good sense of sensing other people's emotions and somewhat manipulating it and changing a person's emotions. So oftentimes you can find people of optimistics tend to be in this categories, or public speakers. Um, so it also deals with the ideas of people interactions. So it knows how to deal with people in a manner. They know how to interact with people in a very pleasant, normal way without creating any issues between others. So a weak extroverted feeling is then someone who is not good with relations and tends to be very emotionless at times. So they're not very expressive of their emotions, and they can often have times and issues with people who they have relationship problems, basically, as they can get in trouble or say insensitive things to people without being aware of other people's emotions. So the next function would be introverted feeling, and this tends to be about the internal feelings a person is. So this deals with issues such as characters, such as your personality. It also deals with issues about a uniqueness of an individual. Storytelling is an introverted feeling aspect. It deals with relationships between people. And so fundamentally, people of this dominant function have a very good sense of people, and they know how to sense people. They can kind of read people very effectively. A weak function of introverted feeling is having some sort of difficulty in relationships. So it's having a sort of challenge in reading people and sensing if they can trust others or not. But I would mostly say it's probably learning how to develop some sort of strong bonds with people in a true manner. So it's this relationship matter. The thinking function now is extroverted thinking. That's the next function I'll describe, and this very quickly tends to be about facts, knowledge, almost organization. So people of extroverted thinking, with their dominant functions, tend to be very organized. It deals with decision making. What is the most rational choice to choose? It also deals with some sense of order, so having things organized in a very effective manner, and just gathering more information over time. So it's information gathering as well. A weak extrovert thinking then deals with a person who has difficulties of, let's say, it could be learning difficulties, but it's also dealing with making the right choices. So knowing what might be the most efficient route when achieving a certain objective, what's the appropriate methods to deal with certain matters. Now the last function, which I kind of find the most difficult to define, but I'll try to explain it, is introverted thinking. So this deals with the internal logic of things. So it deals with the structural laws that exist in this universe. So X will always cause Y, meaning that everything has a sense of order to it, and that there's a certain logic and methodological procedure for things. So it tends to deal with the smartest choice of how things are to work. And so I'll give you examples of people with this dominant function. So oftentimes we can see mechanics, gardeners, people, scientists such as Einstein, people who, factory workers, construction workers, people who create or build things in society. These tend to be very introverted thinking, and it tends to be about logical order of things for how things are to be constructed in a systemic way. So that was a little more difficult to explain, but it tends to be understanding things in a logical manner for how it works. So that's all the 8 informations. It's just a quick summary I explained. It may help, it may not have helped, but this was just my attempt to try to help you guys understand what they are, and you can either use them as shortcuts for how other personalities are like with this. Alright, thanks for listening.